I've only been to London once in my life. I was there on a work trip, and my boss had taken us all out to eat at this Peruvian steak house. No, Argentinian steak. I think it was an Argentinian steakhouse. It was amazing. It was the best steak I've eaten in my life. And I say that as the son of a father who makes amazing steak. Okay, I grew up eating amazing steak. And the steak I had in that restaurant was mind-blowing. So good. If I ever go back to London, I'm going to eat there again. You probably want to know what it's called. The Bull Steak Expert. Choice cuts of char-grilled Argentinian beef in an intimate bistro setting with designer lampshades. With designer lampshades. Don't miss the lampshades. I did not notice the lampshades at all. But the steak was amazing. 54 Red Lion Street, London. You probably need a reservation. It's not that big, and London is. Anyway, it was amazing. It was absolutely mind-blowing. And when we left that meal, my boss turned to me and he said, "You're in charge of dinner tomorrow night." And I was like, okay. He's like, "Whatever you want, just make sure it's amazing." Okay, no pressure. I mean, having just eaten the best steak in my existence, I am now tasked with making sure that tomorrow night's supper is amazing. So I'm now tasked with finding an amazing supper in a city that I know nothing about. I don't know London. I enjoyed it there, but I don't know it. And without the pressure of just having eaten the best steak of my life and him having said, "Whatever you want, just make sure it's amazing," I would have probably just picked a nice place and we would have eaten there. But I felt the burden of making something amazing, right? On par with what we ate the night before. So the next day, I'm looking through all the websites, trying to find something amazing. And I'm looking for something like picturesque or especially unique. Either the food's amazing or the scenery's amazing or you sit upside down, something, right? That's going to be memorable. We're in London, we're doing this memorable thing, we ate at this place. I picked out a good one, right? So I'm looking and I'm looking and I'm looking and I'm looking. I'm not coming up with anything. There's lots of options, but I'm not coming, and any time that I see something like, okay, that looks unique, that looks memorable, let's go with that, they're booked because it's London and you can't look for something on the day that you want to eat there. I'm looking and looking and looking, trying to find something and coming up short, and finally I find a place. It's not extraordinarily unique, but it looks fancy. It looks like good food. They're on the 5th floor of something. It's like the penthouse suite of a very low building, I guess. And so I picked that. And most importantly, they have an opening. So I reserve a table for our party, text the information to everybody else. This is where to meet. This is what time to meet. See you there. Time comes. I was spending some time, I think is it called Camden Market? Time comes. I take the subway over, what do they call it? The tube, mind the gap. I took the tube over and found the restaurant. I go up there. I'm there just a couple minutes early, maybe 10 minutes early. I walk in. I'm expecting them to say something like, "Oh, please have a seat until your reservation time, until your table's ready." Nope. She says, "Hey, come with me right this way." So we go back to the table. And I immediately upon walking in, I realized that I am not dressed for the occasion. This is like 5-star dining, maybe for the culture of London and the culture of that restaurant. It was kind of suit and tie sort of a place. And I didn't have a suit or a tie with me at all. I had worn like the classiest thing I had, which was like a button-down shirt and a sweater and khakis. But immediately underclassed, right? So I'm sitting there waiting at the table, and the waiter comes out and they're very polite and, "How are you?" and "Doing well," right? And then, "Can I get you anything to drink?" And I'm sitting there waiting and I'm waiting. And it comes time to because I was there early. So the time comes when everyone else is supposed to be there, they're not there. The waiter comes back to check on me and, is everything all right, sir? Very good. Anything we can get you? Your party's not here yet? No, I'm sorry. They're coming. They're late, whatever. 10 minutes goes past, they're still not there. 15 minutes goes past. 20 to 25 minutes after the reservation time, they show up. The rest of my party shows up. They had been off somewhere else doing something else. I don't remember whatever part of London they were in, and so they got there late. They walk in. and I'm not saying this in any sort of way that makes it sound like I was doing better than they were, but they were not as dressed up as I was. And I was not as dressed up as the restaurant. So they come in with like Salty Crew t-shirts and ball caps, and they come in sort of typical American noisy into this really nice restaurant that's like, you know, clink, clink, murmur, murmur, you know, this kind of a place. And so we hear them come, and they come down in this like little ball of noise, sit at the table. I'm like, where were you guys? Because I feel very conspicuous, having sat at the table for half an hour. Where were you guys? You know, oh, sorry, we were late, whatever. Okay, so they bring out the menu. Well, it was, what's it called? A tasting menu, I think. That's what they were serving tonight, was a tasting menu. I had never been at a restaurant that served a tasting menu before. Those of you that have culture and class in your lives will automatically know what a tasting menu is. I did not know what a tasting menu was. I didn't realize for those of you that don't know, it's not a menu that you look at and choose what you want to eat, which is what we try to do. It's a menu that's like a preview. It's like a program for the night, right? Like, this is what we're going to be serving. And you can see everything that's coming. You don't make it. Well, you do make a choice. We had one choice to make, and it had to do with dessert, which confused all of us because we just got here and we're like, we're ordering the dessert, you know, and of course we weren't ordering the dessert to have it come out first, but they wanted to know what you wanted to end on. So there was some confusion there and kerfuffle as we tried to order off of the tasting menu, looking like buffoons, and finally we figure out what's going on. And we figured out the price. I had checked the price of this restaurant before we left, and the entree prices looked normal, reasonable for where we are with our business and our budget and everything. So there was like 50, 75 pounds a plate, something like that for entrees. We could handle that. Well, the tasting menu apparently was something along the lines of 200 pounds a plate, I think maybe, which was, you know, we weren't spending that at every meal. In fact, I don't know if we spent that at any meal. I remember my boss seeing the price and going, "Oh, wow, okay." And I was like, "I'm so sorry. I checked the price beforehand. It's you know, they're not serving their normal menu. It's tasting menu. I'm really, really sorry." And he was super gracious about it. He was like, "No, great. This will be a memory." So now we're settled in, paying more per person than we ever expected to. Having figured out now, okay, it's a tasting menu, they're going to bring stuff out to us. And so they start bringing stuff out. And what you're supposed to do at a super fancy London restaurant when you have class and etiquette and all these things is they're going to bring out these courses, which are very small. These are very small courses. These are not large platters of food. It's very small amounts of food. But there's a lot of courses. And it's all very finely crafted, right? This is about the tasting experience. It's about tasting all of the ingredients, how they work together, what's predominant, what's coming in the undertone, all of this stuff. The way some of you might taste bourbon or coffee or you know, something like that. This is how you're supposed to taste this meal. You're supposed to enjoy it and eat it very slowly and think about the experience. But this was not the group that I was with. So they would bring out a portion, they would put it out, and it was all things. It was all things I would never choose to eat of my own free will. Stuff that just doesn't sound good to me. Things like, I remember squid ink was a thing. There was something that had squid ink in it. But it's, you know, it's this combination of like truffle and I want to say snail. I don't know that escargot was part of it, but it was that kind of thing. Lots of sauces and creamy stuff that I just wouldn't, I'm not drawn to. I'm not drawn to this kind of food. It looks like the camera's a little dark. All right, it's not stuff that I'm drawn to. This is the kind of thing that I would typically be like, oh, okay, interesting. You know, a little bit of octopus. But I knew there was no way I was gonna not eat anything that was served. I got us there. We're paying 200 pounds a plate. So I was like, okay, I have to eat everything. I have to eat everything. And I did. By the grace of God, I ate everything that came out. I think there was one thing that I maybe didn't finish all the way. So it would come out, and the guys were not tuned in at all to this tasting experience, you know, where you slowly savor it all. They would look at it kind of confused. Why is that so small? They knew it wasn't something they wanted, but they would, they would stick their fork in the middle and say, well, down the hatch, and eat the whole thing in a bite. And they're not going to bring out the next course as soon as you're done with the first. They give you 10 or 15 minutes or whatever it is, because you're supposed to be savoring your way through it slowly. So then they would sit there with empty plates and stare at them for 10 minutes until the next course came out. And then they would do the same thing. Okay, what is this? Oh boy, I don't know. Snail? Is that snail? Well, all right. I don't think I can do it. I'm going to give it a shot. I've never been into eel, but here goes. You know, whatever. We were attracting a little bit of attention in the restaurant. There was a table behind us, a middle-aged couple that were on a date that definitely knew where they were and and what they were doing there, but they couldn't help noticing us and paying us more and more attention as the night went along. And I got so tickled because the lady could not stop herself from laughing. She was like shaking with laughter, like trying to hold it in. We weren't connecting. She wasn't like looking at me and connecting and sharing the moment. She was observing, and probably there was some British politeness there that she didn't want to just out and out look at me, but she's shaking with laughter, watching all of us be so confused as these dishes came out, you know, that we didn't understand what they were. The portions were super small. Nobody wanted to eat them. We were eating them all in one bite, you know, that kind of stuff. I will say, even if you eat really small portions, by the time you eat 8 small portions over the course of 2 hours, you are full. That is probably the way human digestion is supposed to work. The guys kept ordering. They were so thirsty when they got there, and they kept ordering Diet Coke. And of course, they weren't going to bring you out a thing of Diet Coke. They came out in these little glass bottles on the tray, you know, with a glass with ice cubes. So they would bring out a Diet Coke, you know, and then they would pour it for you, and they would have this little thing of Diet Coke, and they were probably paying, I don't know, they were probably, it was probably $10 or $15 per Diet Coke. I don't know. I'm just guessing. But they went through, you know, they kept having to bring them out because the guys would drink down this little serving, and they'd be like, can I get another can I get another Diet Coke? we got finished, and we connected a little bit with our waiter at that point, and he was a very nice young man. I think he was from Portugal. Very nice young man, handled us very well. And I was I think everybody was a little chagrined that, you know, that they found themselves in this environment, you know, and everybody handles it differently, right? Some people kind of lean into the difference. Some people try to class it up, but I was definitely feeling a little self-aware. I don't want to say embarrassed. I enjoyed being there with my work group. They didn't portend themselves the way I would rather have, that I would have chosen for them, but that's okay. We had a good time. Our waiter was very kind, but I asked him at the end of the evening, I said, are we the most memorable group that you've ever had? And he went, oh, well, well, you know, and he didn't, he didn't know what to say. And he said some very kind things about, everyone's welcome. And he treats everyone the same or whatever, which that in and of itself is very telling, right? That shows you if you walk into a place and you belong in that place, people don't say things to you like, we really value everyone, all are welcome here. It shows you that you're outside of the circle a little bit. Oh my goodness. I will not be eating there again. I will be going back to the Bull Steak Expert if I ever get a chance to do that. I can promise you that. It was something else. You're going to find yourself in life thrust into situations where you realize that you are not part of that core culture. You don't know it, you don't understand it, you don't know the language. You're not sure how to negotiate yourself through that. Right? It might not be a fancy restaurant, but some other scenario where you realize you're on the outside. There's a whole culture here. There's a whole understanding. There's a whole unspoken code of conduct, conversation, terminology, language, behaviors, all of these things, right? And you're not going to know them. And how you handle that says a lot about you. You can lean into your difference out of embarrassment, and some people do that, right? Well, I don't know what this is all about. This is all stupid anyway, right? You can try to mimic everything that you see going on in front of you, or pretend that you're really not on the outside, and you stick out like a sore thumb that way as well. When you find yourself in a scenario like that, it's okay. Respect the culture around you as much as you can. Don't lean into your difference. Don't try to pretend to be what you're not. Accommodate it as much as you can as you're learning. Just be self-aware and don't give off the pretending vibes. It will be okay. And if it's anything like my experience, it'll be one for the memory books. That's my thought for today. Do with it what you will.